I read a lot in Tokyo. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. For those of you who don't know, my name is Faith, and thank you so much for watching. Today I'm going to go over all the books that I read while I was in Tokyo. I just got back on Thursday. I literally slept for 16 hours Thursday night and woke up at 3 p.m. on Friday. And I didn't have time to film this on Friday night, and I had stuff to do this morning, so I'm filming this very last minute. It's literally 5 p.m. on Saturday, and I'm posting this at noon on Sunday. I read 4 books while I was in Tokyo, and I'm not going to go into a ton of detail on them because, again, I'm filming this last minute, so I also don't have a lot of time to edit this. And I would like to save my more in-depth review on my August reading wrap-up. But all of the books, except for one, were by indie or self-published authors, so talking about their books in more than one video just kind of helps them out. And since they're also not all very well-known books, hopefully this can give you some new recommendations. But without further ado, let's actually get into the books that I read while I was in Tokyo. The airport that I live closest to isn't an international airport, so I actually had to take 2 flights, and the first one was only about an hour, but the second flight was 12 whole hours. I do not recommend. So I actually read an entire book on that flight, and that book was Ski You Later by Ella McGiven. I'm very sorry if I pronounced that wrong. I ended up giving this a 4.25 stars. Honestly, it was very cute, and I actually knew absolutely nothing about skiing going into this book, and I feel like I learned a lot, and at times it did feel like it was more about the skiing than the romance. But again, since I didn't really know anything about it, I was kind of fine with that because it actually helped me get informed about the sport. Even though I did see that as both a negative and a positive, I did deduct just a few points for that just because, again, at times it did get kind of boring with how informative it was about the sport and not the romance. I thought this book was very cute. I thought their relationship was really cute. The author was a skier, and I really feel like you can tell how connected she is with the sport in her writing, and I really liked that. Honestly, my biggest issue with this book is that the FMC gets drunk, I think, 3 or 4 times throughout the entire book, and she gets hungover all but one time. And the one time she didn't get hungover was the first time she was drinking in the book, but that time she drank so much that she blacked out, and she didn't black out any of the other times. And if you don't know, if you black out, that means you overdosed on alcohol, and you absolutely will be getting a hangover. Honestly, I wouldn't have been that bothered by it if she wasn't hungover for the other time she got drunk. When she blacked out, that means she drank way above her limit, and since she didn't black out the other 3 times, that means she drank less than she did when she got blackout drunk. So it literally makes no sense that the time she got blackout drunk was the time she didn't get hungover at all. That just stuck with me, and honestly, it did bother me. Don't get me wrong, I still loved the book. I just think it's important to write alcohol consumption very accurately. I just feel like alcohol consumption is something that needs to be taken a lot more seriously. Yeah, it can be fun to go out and get drunk with your friends, but it's also a depressant and something that people can very easily get addicted to. I just feel like it's important to represent things like that accurately on literally any level, no matter how many times they drink, even if it's literally one shot throughout the whole story and it's the only shot they've ever taken in their entire lives. I think the effects of alcohol should be actually accurate, just because a lot of people are already misinformed on that thing, and that just makes it easier to be still misinformed. Again, as a whole, I absolutely loved the book. I gave it 4.25 stars. I absolutely would recommend it. That one part just really stuck out to me, and I just didn't like that. Then I actually got to Tokyo, and I started reading Face Off by Chelsea Curto. Again, I'm sorry if I mispronounced that. And this was my first 5-star read since May, and I needed it. This book was so good. Guys, I will be breaking the ban to buy the entire series. I'm sorry, but I'm really not. This book was so unbelievably good, and I'm really mad at myself for not reading it sooner. Every single time I go to the bookstore, I literally notice this book, and I'm like, should I get it? Should I not? Should I get it? Should I not? And I always don't get it. And I'm really mad at myself for never getting it. So I will be getting it and every other book in the series. Again, sorry, not sorry. I genuinely loved this entire book. I have 2 complaints, and one of them is not a complaint towards this book at all. It's more of a complaint to the whole sports romance genre, and I will get to that one in a second. The only complaint I have that is solely towards this book is that in chapter 19, I believe, it is made very clear that they lost to Chicago. And then in chapter 22, it says that they beat Chicago, and that's why they were out celebrating. But then in chapter 23, it says they lost to Chicago. So I don't know if it's just me missing something, and that in chapter 22, them saying we won was just kind of like a joke or something, or a sarcastic comment. If it was just a joke, it didn't land with me, and I mean, that's my bad, I guess. But I was just really confused by that, because the whole reason they get together in the first place is that they lost to Chicago, and they were kind of taking out their aggressions on each other by hooking up, and then they won, but then, oh wait, they didn't win. So again, I don't know if that was just me like misreading something. If it was, again, that's my bad. If it wasn't, that's not my bad. But yeah, that is literally the only complaint that I have that is solely towards this book. My complaint that is towards the sports romance genre as a whole. Almost every single sports romance book that I have read where the FMC is also an athlete, she doesn't get what she wants. For example, the Graham Effect, she didn't get onto the Olympic team. This one, she didn't get a stay with the DC, she got transferred to Toronto. And yes, she was still playing on the NHL, but why was she the one who had to be misplaced? is what I'm trying to say. I genuinely can't think of a single sports romance that I've ever read, and I've read 16 this year alone, where the man is the one losing something. And I just don't like that. I was an athlete for over half of my life, and even at the level I played, which didn't go beyond high school, female athletes are treated as less than male athletes. And as a former athlete, I just don't like how that is represented in books. And yes, I know she was still in the NHL, and it's not necessarily about this book specifically. It's just something that I've noticed with all female athletes in these books. And I know it just said, I don't know of a single book that I've read where the male athlete loses something. Spoilers for a later book in the DC Star series. I do know that I believe in the fourth book, I can't remember what it's called. I think Hat Trick, I'm not entirely sure. He loses a limb in a car accident and can no longer play hockey. At least that's my understanding of the book. I'm assuming he can't play hockey after that. I have not read that yet, so obviously that does not count. However, that being said, again, I have read 16 this year alone. I've probably read over 40, closer to 50, and that is the only one I can think of. Yet the majority of books where it's a female athlete I can think of where she lost out on her sport. Just something that I noticed that I kind of wanted to talk about. And honestly, I'm probably going to make a video where I go further into depth on that issue. Kind of just wanted to bring it up now so that I wouldn't forget and so I could maybe start the conversation of that. That being said, still 5 stars. After I finished that, I started Trouble by Megan Hawley. I only gave this one 3 stars. I wasn't the biggest fan of this book. Obviously, I gave it 3 stars. My main issue with this book is that the FMC's actions felt like they were only being done so that the story could move forward and not because it actually felt like something she would do. If you've watched my videos before, you probably know that a lot of the books I DNF, I have an issue with because of the show don't tell rule. I have taken multiple writing classes. Granted, they were script writing and not book writing. That being said, I feel like characterization is fairly similar, and we were always told show, don't tell. Don't tell us the character is this, show us through their actions. And of course, there are exceptions, but with this, we were constantly told that Indy had abandonment issues. Everyone in her life left her, so it didn't make sense how quickly she got along with these people. And it wasn't just because of the show don't tell. She would literally go from one paragraph being like, "Ah, I hate her," to, "Oh, guess we're friends." Like, that just didn't make any sense because it happened with zero hesitation. And that's pretty much just how her character was throughout the entire book. We were constantly told she was this character, but then shown that she was this character. I just didn't really like the character. I didn't really like either version of her, the version we were told or shown. I think if she stuck with just one side of that and let that side be more developed, I might have liked her, but just with how it was, I didn't. I'm also a fan of slow burn, but this was so insanely slow burn with the most abrupt ending that the pacing just made absolutely no sense. Ski You Later is going to have at least one other book, and I definitely will be reading that. And again, I'm going to read the rest of the DC Star series, but this series, I just really don't think I'm going to continue. The FMC for the next book was Indy's best friend in this book, and I just didn't really like her, honestly. I think the reason I read this book is because I saw a video promoting the 4th book in this series, I think it was, and that book sounded really good, but I don't like reading books out of order, so I started with the first one, and since I just really didn't like it, I don't think I'm going to continue. I feel bad saying I don't recommend an indie author's work, especially when it's a 4 or 5 book series, so obviously there's a chance that her writing progresses throughout, but where I'm at right now, I just probably would not recommend it. And I finished that book right before we left Tokyo. So this next book I read on the 12-hour flight back home, and that was The Rule Breaker by Stephanie Alves. And again, I gave this one 3 stars. I would have DNF'd this book, but I accidentally purchased it. I thought I was on KU. Apparently it wasn't, so I did buy it, and because I bought it, I felt the need to read it. I am not a fan of Insta Love or Insta Lust, and that is exactly what this book was. The literal first time that they laid eyes on each other, they were so into each other. Guys, I'm blanking right now. I can't even remember their names, so I'm just gonna call it her and him. Her brother was on his hockey team, and her dad was his coach, and she also helped manage the team. Their relationship development made no sense. The characters were very flat. They had maybe 2 deep conversations throughout the entire book. I can honestly only remember 1, so me saying 2 is being generous. The first 30% of the book is them being attracted to each other but refusing to hook up, and then after that they hook up. They obviously continue hooking up until 70 or 80% in, where she's like, "We need to call this off because you could never love me because you don't want to be in a relationship." And then he's like, "Girl, I want to be in a relationship with you." And then they're like, "Oh, okay." And then they're in a relationship. As you can tell, I don't even remember their names, so obviously I didn't really like it that much. Their relationship development made literally no sense, because at one point he was literally just like, "Wait, I like her," and she was just like, "Wait, I like him," but from what? Again, they had one, generously, I'll say two, deep conversations. Obviously, you're not going to write out every single second that they spend together, but you have to include moments that are going to make their relationship development make sense. Because it literally just went from meaningless sex to both of them, even though the whole time it really was never meaningless. They both pretty much liked each other from the beginning. But for the sake of it, I'm just going to say meaningless sex. They went from having meaningless sex to just randomly being like, wait, I love you. It really just made no sense. And honestly, I think I'm going to bump my rating down to 2.5. I would not recommend this. And again, I feel bad saying I wouldn't recommend an indie author's work. If you've watched my videos before, you know I have this thing. If I finish a book, I automatically give it 2 stars. The only reason I'm going to give it that 0.5 is because the spicy scenes were honestly well written. In my opinion, the spicy scenes are the least important part of the books. If you're going to have one part well written and one part not, the well written part needs to be the part where they're not having sex. You can't make the only good part of the book be when they're having sex. And absolutely no hate to this author. Again, I feel bad dissing on indie authors' works. It really just was not for me at all. Those are all the books I read in Tokyo. I did have some of my friends tell me that I should make a Tokyo vlog. Completely forgot about that for the first few days, so I didn't get a lot of video clips in. And the video clips and photos that I got in aren't really vlog worthy in my opinion. I might make just a short little one and post it on here. If that is something you guys would be interested in, let me know. Might just do it anyway. We'll see. That is all that I have for you guys today. So I hope you guys have had a fantastic summer. Good luck to those of you starting school back up again. I hope you have a great school year. Be sure to like and subscribe and follow my Instagram, which is in the description below for more bookish content. Love you guys. Bye.